I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel in this war against the terrorist organizations Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the militias in Iraq, and the terrorist groups in Judea and Samaria. Each one is coordinated by Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Tonight, we're broadcasting from Jerusalem as leaders in Christian media gather to hear the truth from the ground. And the truth right now is this: while a first phase agreement was designed to bring every living hostages home and the return of the fallen for burial in Israel, the terrorist organization Hamas is violating the deal, playing for time with cynical theatrics and disrespecting the dead. Here is what happened and how it happened. In the past 48 hours, Israeli officials say that the terrorist organization Hamas knows the location of most of the murdered hostages, yet it stages a performance of so-called searches to delay the process. Last night, it handed over remains that it claims were Israelis, and forensics checks proved that they were not. This is not a mistake. This is deception, a move to appease mediators without delivering truth. Jerusalem's position is firm: no real compliance with Stage A, no move to Stage B. And the Prime Minister said it clearly: if a multinational force will not enforce demilitarization in the Gaza Strip, the IDF will. And on the ground, violations continue. Since the ceasefire marker, there have been multiple incidents against our forces, some deadly, and the IDF is destroying tunnels and underground infrastructure inside the zones under Israeli control, and when necessary, striking beyond the yellow line to preempt attacks. And in parallel, reports from Gaza indicate that the terrorist organization Hamas has abandoned its own operatives that are trapped on the Israeli-controlled side of the yellow line, men that have families and are running from tunnel segments in Rafah and Khan Yunis, asking to be rescued. Whether that is chaos or tactic, it reveals the true nature of this enemy. Take advantage of your own, lie to the world, and bargain with the bodies of our loved ones. Now, let's talk about the American interim plan, what it aims to do, and why executing it is very hard. The concept is to place a multinational separating force along the yellow line to reduce friction while building humanitarian zones in the north and also in the south where civilians can stabilize and begin the recovery. Maps are being drawn. Israel retains control of key points and a veto on the composition of any force. In theory, that buys time and pressure. Time to verify the return of the fallen and pressure on the terrorist organization Hamas to accept demilitarization and replacement governments in Gaza. But here are the frictions that make this very difficult. 1. Armed enemy, unarmed peace. You cannot ask a non-IDF force to take over anything while the terrorist organization Hamas remains armed in depth. Demilitarization is not a press release. It requires inventory, collection, and destruction of weapons, access to tunnels, and freedom to act within the enemy while it's violating the terms. If the force cannot enter a shaft without negotiating with a gunman, it is not a separating force. It's a photo op. 2. Who gives the orders and what happens on breaches? A workable plan needs clear rules of engagement. Who stops a rocket crew in real time? Who arrests a cell that fires on the line and docks into a school? What is the automatic consequences of a breach? Sanctions? Targeted arrests? Precision strikes? If those answers are vague, implementation collapses the first night. So who actually joins? Many candidate states will not deploy soldiers in contract with a still-armed terrorist organization. That means that the so-called multinational force may rely on engineers, police-type units, and limited contingents. Valuable people, but not a replacement for a security force that can fight if required. Without critical mass and without Israel's freedom of action, the plan is a map without muscles. Handover versus handoff. The terror organization Hamas talks about giving the arms away. That is theater. Arms are not given, they are surrendered, cataloged, and destroyed under verification. Anything short of that becomes a shell game. Truck a few rifles to a warehouse, keep the real kit in a tunnel, and proclaim that you are abiding by the agreement, compliance. The remains. Stage A was explicit, living hostages home and the return of the fallen. If the terrorist organization Hamas keeps withholding coordinates while handing over random remains, everything freezes. The humanitarian zones, the outside force, and the path to stage B. So, where does that leave Israel? With a sequence mechanism that can work if the mechanism is enforced. The IDF retains control over more than half of the Gaza Strip in this stage and the right to enter wherever needed. The red lines stand. No Nukhba terrorists from October 7th are released. The 4 aces demanded by Hamas are not in the package. And hour by hour, the question is simple. Does Hamas deliver truth, or does Israel act? Friends, tonight, we are standing inside a room filled with Christian media leaders who want to see and hear the truth for themselves. That matters, because the information that is being shared around the globe regarding this war is not correct. So the next chapter of support for Israel will be written by a new generation. Over the last decade, surveys show a shift among young evangelicals. Many are less connected to the Bible as a living story and more shaped by social media emotion than facts on the ground. Amongst older evangelicals, more than 70% see Israel's existence as fulfillment of biblical promises. Among those under 30, that number drops dramatically. Another study shows that only about a third of 18 to 29-year-old evangelicals have a positive view of Israel, down from nearly 70% a decade ago. And a recent look at scripture engagement found that fewer than half of young evangelicals say that the Bible should be taken literally, compared to strong majorities amongst the seniors. So, add one more reality. Gen Z trusts creators more than institutions, and the first place that they meet Israel is often a 60-second clip on TikTok or on Instagram. That is why this Christian Media Summit matters right now. For the next days, participants will meet survivors from Kfar Aza and Nir Oz, Israeli communities that were attacked. See the 6:29 a.m. exhibit. Hear from families of hostages, receive strategic briefings, and walk the north and the southern borders. It is truth firsthand, and it is also where we ask how to communicate the truth to the generation that scrolls faster than it reads. In a few minutes, we go live to a special panel, The Young Generation, and I want to set the stage for you. In this panel, we will have Mansour Ashkar, which is a Druze Israeli former IDF Special Forces officer, and today a social media voice of courage and coexistence. Mati Shoshani, the one and only CEO of Sarel Media and Production, and myself, Yair Pinto, host of Boots on the Ground on TBN Israel. Here is what we tackle head on. Why the rift? Mansour will share how young Christians abroad respond to his faith journey and service, what resonates, what confuses, and what heals. What changed after October? Jerusalem tonight, and families who refuse to surrender to darkness are shining brighter with hope. We will speak honestly about what leaders, Israeli and Christians, get wrong when speaking to young audiences, preaching without listening, slogans without stories, anger without compassion. What works? Humor that disarms, vulnerability that invites, reality that refuses to look away, faith that prays and acts. And then we will do what we always do best, boots on the ground, ask the hard questions. What would each of us say in just 60 seconds to a young Christian scrolling fast? How do we answer lies with the truth and do it with conviction and with compassion? How do we honor the living, return the fallen, and rebuild the moral imagination of a generation? Before we roll, take a second, make sure to hit that subscribe button, share, and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. I'm Yair Pinto. This is going to be the Young Generation panel at the Christian Media Summit in Jerusalem, coming to you live right now. You don't want to miss this. So I'm going to change into a suit and appear in this conference with Mati Shoshani and with the hosts. So thank you so much.
Good evening and welcome to Jerusalem. I'm Ayan Hoffman, Executive Editor of ILTV, and it is such a privilege to welcome all of you here in person and those joining us online to the Christian Media Summit, our first in-person summit since the massacre on October 7th, 2023. The summit comes at a defining moment for Israel and for truth. Since October 7th, we have faced not only war on the ground, but a war of words. Israel's story has been distorted by bias, stripped of context, or drowned out by misinformation. That's why your presence here matters so deeply. Christian journalists and media leaders have become vital truth tellers, bringing compassion, context, and moral clarity to audiences who might otherwise never hear Israel's side. You remind the world that this country is not an abstraction or a headline. It's home to real people fighting for their lives and for their freedom. Your work also stands as a moral counterweight at a time when anti-Semitism is rising at alarming levels, up more than 300% in the United States alone since October 7th, and growing across Europe and beyond. What begins with lies about Israel too often ends in hatred toward Jews. And that's why the partnership between Israel and the Christian media community has never been more critical. This week, we will celebrate that partnership built on shared values of faith, freedom, and truth. To kick us off, I want to welcome Nitzan Chen, the director of Israel's government press office, who has worked tirelessly together with his incredible staff to make this summit possible. They've worked under challenging circumstances to bring us all together tonight. So with deep gratitude and admiration, please join me in welcoming Nitzan Chen.
Wow, I'm exciting. Hello, everyone. It's really my pleasure to welcome you all back to the seventh insightful, informative, and without doubt emotional few days. I know that some of you are still in jet lag, but don't worry. After this night you'll go to sleep, and tomorrow morning you will be like lions. As journalists, it is our sacred duty to report the facts as we see them on the ground. It is almost an unwritten hypocritical oath that ethical journalists are bound to report what is happening in an impartial and truthful manner. However, we have all witnessed how easily those lines can be buried, how points of view can be destroyed, and how the power of the new media has fallen into the hands of individual entities dedicated to spreading lies, disinformation, and deception, completely transforming the face of journalism as we once knew it. Artificial intelligence has further changed our perception of what we real, while the public's patience to verify facts has almost vanished. People swallow disinformation whole, and headlines has become little more than clickbait. They manipulate unsuspecting readers. It's really touchful and very tough for us. So in a few minutes, we will hear from our panelists. All of them are professional. Nachon Mati Shoshani. We will hear from our panel just how difficult it is in these times to get clear and honest message out to those of social media and how it has fact to become the eighth battleground in the war. We hope that this next few days will give you the opportunity to see the full picture on the ground. You will meet and hear from those who have done and continue to do everything possible to support their communities, strengthen the moral fabric of society, and fight tirelessly for the return of our hostages, those who have endured unspeakable torture for 2 years in the tunnels of Hamas. As you know, Jews are optimistic people somehow. Even in the darkest hours, we manage to find humor. Somehow we continue to look for a light of goodness, even in the bleakness of time. We believe that we have now turned a corner in this bloodiest of conflicts. With the return of our hostages, we can begin the long and painful process of healing. There is so much to do, and as journalists, we must strive to show reality as it is, to resist the trap of easy headlines or the unverified images. Such shortcuts are dishonest and represent a failure of our profession. I am confident that you will find these coming days inspiring and uplifting, even as we continue to confront the horrors and destruction of recent times. We have given this period a new name, not simply a war of October 7 or Hamas war, but rather Milchemet Tkuma, the war of redemption and revival. Just we aim to resurrect our society from the ashes of the destruction, we must also resurrect our integrity as journalists. We must return to the core values of our craft and bring clear, honest, and responsible reporting to the readers and viewers who place their trust in us. I hope that the coming days will give you much to reflect upon, and that you will take into your message of the Israeli people our enduring commitment to peace, truth, and revival. Back home to your own countries, back to your readers, and the world behind our little country. And finally, I would like to thank our partners for this summit, that without them we wouldn't succeed to achieve this summit. The MFA team led by Dan Orian, and the Friends of IFCJ led by Gidi Schmerling. Thank you, Gidi. And now, let it all begin, but before that, let's have a toast, and let's say a blessing, but one short. May Lord protect the people of Israel. May Lord protect our summit for these coming 5 days, and God bless us all. Thank you. L'chaim, 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 l'chaim. Amen.
Today's panel will explore why that's happening and how new media creators, like our incredible guest, who reach millions on TikTok, Instagram, and TV, are helping to rebuild that connection. I'd like to welcome our panelists. First, Mansour Ashkar, a Druze Israeli. He's a Druze Israeli and former IDF Special Forces officer who is today a social media sensation. Thank you. Next, Mati Shoshani, CEO of SAR El Media and Production. Wow, that's right. 3 Israeli men on the panel. I don't know what to do with that. And Yair Pinto, a dynamic host and content creator at TBN Israel. Okay, here. Does this work?
Can you hear me now?
You can host.
Yeah. So welcome.
All right, I think we got it. There's a green light. Okay, so Mansour, I do want to start with you. Now, you're a Druze Israeli who served in the Special Forces and now speaks very openly about your faith journey and peace building. How do people, especially Christians abroad, respond to your story?
Well, first, most people don't know what Druze is. And when I tell them that I'm a Druze, they think that I'm talking about the Druids. And only half an hour through the conversation, I realized they thought that I'm running naked around trees in the forest. A complete different religion, guys. So, your question is, the Druze are not only one of the smallest minorities in the world. There's about 1 million of us. The only place that the Druze are safe in the Middle East is in Israel. I have family in Syria that suffered the Druze version of October 7. I have relatives in Lebanon. I know it as an authority. I'm telling you right now, the only place that in general minorities are safe in the Middle East are in Israel. But that's one of the first things that shocks people when they start talking to me about the Druze, when I tell them that. Because they've been hearing all these lies that Israel is so evil to minorities, that Israel is an apartheid. And then they get a complete different mirror in their face. And when they hear that I speak Arabic also, they usually expect me to be anti-Israel, anti-West, anti-American, anti-Christians. And then they get a complete other tidal wave. Christianity is probably the most important religion on this planet because it is the West. And if it wasn't for Christians, we wouldn't be living in these Western values. Judaic Christian values brought to us what there's the West today. Let's be honest about it. So when they see a Druze coming and telling them that, I think usually it kind of caught them by surprise. Most of the time they just stop talking to me and just leave. In Europe, I live in Europe. They don't want to face the hard truth, but sometimes they get really intrigued, and then they come, personally after and just tell me more about it.
And when they start talking to you and you start to tell them about October 7th, how do they perceive what happened on that day, and what most surprises you about these young people?
Actually, what most surprises me is something that I heard from a team of fathers in Germany from the same kindergarten. When they asked me, why did people in Israel try to go back from all over the world, including me, to fight to defend Israel? And they came and told me, if Russia invaded Germany right now, I live in Germany, I would never fight for the government. And I would never fight for Bibi Netanyahu, or I don't know what. And then I told them, listen guys, most Israelis did not leave in the morning their houses and went because they wanted to fight for the government, for a single politician. They went because there was a Jewish mother locked in a basement, her husband is dead, and there's evil people that want to kill her. And then I asked them, if there was a village in Germany now, and people will come and invade your country, and they kill the men, want to kill the women, wouldn't you want to run there and defend her? And they looked at me and they were very honest, and I respect them for that. And they were very ashamed. And it says, honestly, I would just run away from the country. And this identity problem that many countries in the West, they don't have this identity that we in Israel still have it, which is it's our country, it's our people, and we have an obligation to defend these women, these children. Doesn't matter if you're Druze, if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, which religion, it's our people. So I think that sometimes is something that they really intrigued to, like, what makes us so in love with our country, which is very weird in the West.
And it's a beautiful message. Now, unfortunately, research is showing that there is a lot of identity confusion, exactly as you're talking about, and skepticism even toward authority, which is driving a younger generation away from those traditional beliefs. A 2023 Pew survey, in fact, showed that only 45% of U.S. evangelicals that are young, age 18 to 29, say they believe that the Bible should be taken literally, and that's opposed to 70% of the older generation, over 65. So, Mansour, one more question for you before I turn to Mati. Do you think that storytelling from people like yourself, a Druze who believes in the Christian faith, can help reawaken that connection for those young people to their own faith?
I think not only the ancient art of storytelling is super crucial here, it is literally needed for the survival of our civilization. Because I feel that these young people you're talking about right now, that spend all their time in Discord, playing Call of Duty, playing with their friends, and that's where they get all the contact, and then they go in TikTok and I don't know what, and they don't listen to podcasts, they don't go and read, they don't hold a copy of the Bible and read it, they listen to Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, whatever his name, some weirdos, Candace Owens, are telling them different stories that Israel is not Israel anymore, replacement theology, that, when it talks about the chosen people, it talks about us. It's not about the Jews anymore, and they're kicking the Jews out of the picture, which is surprisingly. I spent a lifetime in the IDF, in the Special Forces, behind enemy line, and in the front, in the defense, in the offense. I speak Arabic. I lived in the US. I live in Europe. I understand these cultures very well. I met Mati Shoshani when we were in the youth camps, in the same Christian youth camps in Israel. I used to teach the Bible as a Druze to Jews, to Christians, and that's part of the gift in Israel. And for me, hearing people coming and trying to take the Jews out of the Bible, it's just insane. But if we don't wake up to realize that these young generations that are slowly, someone is going behind our backs and robbing the between Judaism and Christianity and the Western values and kicking the Jews out of the picture, we're going to wake up one day that they're going to be the next voters that will shape the face of America, of Europe, and that's going to be a very bad place to be for all of us. So I think it's super important that we start understanding, how do we address these young kids, but not just talk about it, but practically. And there's practical things you can do. But if we don't do that, we're just going to speak to the choir. I'm going to say something, everybody here is going to agree with me because we grew up in that generation, and for us it's very clear. But then it's not going to reach these kids out there, and we're going to suffer a terrible fate if we don't, wake up for that.
Thank you. So I want to turn to Mati, actually very related to that. Mati, you are working for TBN and Sarel, showing Israel beyond the headlines for a very long time. But since October 7th, obviously the platforms you're using have had to change. Talk to me a little bit about those new platforms and how you do reach that younger generation. Are they looking at the long-form videos that you're making, or are they looking for those bite-sized emotional stories?
Yes to both of those questions. We saw a transformation on October 7th. Television isn't new to us and digital isn't new to us, but we saw a shift in the audience after October 7th. And me and you were talking about this on the phone just the other night. I'm not sure if it's a new audience or if people around the world woke up one morning and said, we have to find out what's happening here. And I'll say this to the credit of our team, we were both called into reserves the very next day, or not the very next day, that day, October 7th, Yair and I, Yair and Tomer, a member of our team, started reporting immediately. I was busy doing other things in reserves. Anyway, but what it was the audience responded to the facts on the ground. The name of the show we produce is called Boots on the Ground. But what it was is we saw people from around the world wake up and say, we want to see something firsthand. And at the beginning it was very unpolished, it was very unrefined. We want to see firsthand what's happening, and we want to hear. And I want to say this, I think in many people around the world, they have an inkling of what's true and what's good. And they were looking for it, and they found in their news sensationalism, they found in their news deception, they found in their news partial reporting, and they went searching on YouTube and on other platforms, looking for someone that they could call genuine. And they found sometimes us, sometimes Mansfield does an amazing job and did amazing reporting in the last season of Overwatch and really waking up the world to that, and others around the world. And they said, we want that authenticity. We want something from the ground because we're connecting with that. And this is sort of outside of this conversation. I think there's a major shift in the way people consume content that has to do with COVID and disillusionment with institutions and news and the fall of Fox and everything you want to talk about in that world. And it ends up in people watching something that happens on the ground in Israel and really gravitating towards that. And we have people that watch every day.
Are looking for that personal connection to understand what's going on. How are you going through all these challenges that the people of Israel have went through, and then pray about it? Sorry, Mati.
No, it's all good. I'll get back to you later. And anyway, but to your point, Yair, here's the thing. There's a lot of people out there that are looking for the truth, and a lot of them are seeking it, but there's also a need for more. And I think people look and they come to these things and say, oh, they have a method, they have a system. That's not true. There is a demand out there for honest reporting. There's a demand out there for grassroots reporting. And there's a demand from people on the ground to give their testimonies about what's true. And I think the audience clicks with it. In all demographics, by the way, not just young people.
And it's really backed up by data, everything that you're saying. I mean, there's data suggesting that the Gen Z, at least, trust influencers or individuals much more than they do institutions, even politicians and pastors. And I saw this data point that 85% of Gen Z learn about Israel first through platforms like Instagram and TikTok. So, Mati, let me ask you this. How can Israel advocates then, like yourself, use all this influence, the videos you're making, the boots on the ground, responsibly, because that's very dangerous to just put up a lot of videos?
Yeah, I agree. One, there is a huge responsibility that goes together with it. And you have to come to terms with the fact that you're always going to make mistakes and then just be honest about them and correct them later. News moves too quickly. I'd say there's two things that I hope for and our team hopes for. It's one, there's an audience out there that wants information. And for those people we say, guys, can we find a way to give you more information? Can we find a way to educate? Can we find a way to empower? Can we find a way to equip people with more information about what they want to know? And that information is both facts, as you say, but a lot of it is emotional. A lot of it is storytelling, to Mansour's point. A lot of it is a heart-to-heart connection because people want a face on the other side that they can connect with. I would call that a huge success. If there's people out there that watch our content and they can walk away and say, I now know more and I can advocate. I know more and I can share the truth. That's a win. But there's another win. That's just one. Another win is for the skeptics and for the doubters and for the people that have fallen victim to lies and to anti-Israel or anti-Semitic rhetoric or anti-God rhetoric, as Mansour says. Also for those people, I have a goal. And we want to challenge their belief enough for the point that they would doubt for a minute that they know everything about this topic. Because with doubt starts an educated conversation. And if we can get to enough people that are in the middle, and I think there's a huge audience out there of young people and older people that in their heart have something that's seeking, something that's true and virtuous, if we can put doubt in their heart to say, maybe a YouTube video is not enough to educate myself about the Middle East, one single video. Maybe that one lecture I took in university wasn't enough to shape my worldview. Maybe that one pastor, by the way, that told me that Jews can't do this or can't do that, maybe that's not enough. Maybe I need to change my worldview. That is also a win in my book. And so it's both. It's people that need the education, but also those that think they know everything and just putting a bit of doubt in their mind to get them to change the way they look at the world.
Wow.
Now, he's going to interrupt you in a few minutes. So
I know, I'm waiting for it.
So yeah, you were drafted on October 8th or October 7th, as you mentioned. And on October 8th, you were actually already literally reporting from the field. I want to talk a little bit about the details of the kind of things that need to be reported. What did you feel compelled to show people that the mainstream outlets were not?
Okay, so I remember this morning like it was yesterday, 6:25, rockets, and then reports of terrorists infiltrating the country. And then we were called to fight and defend the country. Okay, that was like all clear. We were drilled to do this. But then just, I would say, maybe 1 or 2 days later, we realized that the entire media is getting it wrong. And for some reason, Israel became the bad guys. And Hamas, this terrorist organization that just kidnapped 250 of our civilians, women, children, the elderly, babies into Gaza, are the good guys. And something's wrong here, and people don't get the information. So I realized that I have to do something because I see it. I'm on the front lines, and I have a phone. And all of us have phones now. So it just started on October 7, a short video, I think it was like 3 minutes, of what I'm feeling, what's happening, my perspective of things from the ground, from the front lines. And then the next day, I did another one, and another one, and another one, and now we're more than 735 videos since this war started. And we started with like 100,000 viewers, subscribers, and now we're at 1.6 million subscribers. So it's just amazing that if you just take a step of faith towards what God is telling you to do, then He will open unimaginable doors in your way, and you can really share His love in a very powerful way, a lot bigger than what we think that we can achieve throughout our own strength. So this is something that I think God did in this war for me personally, and I think this is a fact that when you share the truth, you are a lot stronger than all these lies. But to be honest, guys, we are losing this war. We are losing the war of sharing the truth of what's happening in Israel. And this is crazy. We are the only democratic state in the Middle East, and still we are portrayed as villains, as monsters. Why is that? And I think it's because many people know the truth but are quiet. So we need to stand up, each of us in our own world, just to stand up. And I'm speaking to you guys, and you're like in the third level of making a stand for Israel. So I say the first one is to listen, to understand what's happening, and share the truth. Then the second thing is take action in praying for the peace of Jerusalem, but make it personal. When you pray for something here. And then the third thing is coming to the land of Israel and standing shoulder to shoulder with the people of Israel. So you're here at the top of the line of being active, and I thank you for that very much.
I want to disturb you this time. I want to add something about that. Some people might not like to hear what I'm about to say, but Yair here mentioned something very true. We're losing the eighth front of this war. Israel is so amazing that, think about it, we've managed to kick the tusik out of all our enemies in the most creative way. 7 fronts, doing it back, like it's just insane. We went on them full on ninja on steroids, Jewish ninja. And the world had to stop us. Okay guys, don't defeat Iran until the end, okay? Don't destroy completely Hezbollah and Hamas, you know, you're doing it too good. But then comes the 8th front, social media, and we're just losing terribly. And then you say, such a bright nation, a startup nation, the nation of the Mossad, the IDF, the Israeli Air Force, and we're losing so badly on that front. And one of the reasons is that I think we don't understand in the West, and it comes to personal responsibilities of parents. And I'm a parent, and I have a kid, and I realize how important is my responsibility to my kid. Children are the most vulnerable in society. Students are the dumbest version of adults. They just became adults. Yesterday he thought he was Spider-Man and she was doing duck face in TikTok, and now they're students. And they're young adults. And we need to be, they don't know how to handle taxes. They haven't had the life experience that many people here had. So they're much more easily manipulated, and we send them to all kind of colleges and campuses and all kind of clubs without properly checking what do they teach them there. And then no wonder they come thinking crazy stuff. I never thought in my lifetime that I'll hear Americans or Christians saying Osama bin Laden was right, or saying Hitler was right, or it's even becoming cool to say, my favorite birthday is the birthday of Stalin or of Hitler. We just heard like so many weird stuff that young Americans are saying, and Europeans, that you said, like, where is their sense of history? One of my favorite quotes from Bibi Netanyahu actually was that Israel is sick and tired of taking advice from people whose sense of history doesn't go beyond breakfast. And it's so true, and we're seeing that with the young generation. I think that is why we're losing. Yair mentioned here, that we're losing that war. We're losing that war terribly. And it's dangerous, not only for us, but for them. Because a nation that forgets history is doomed to repeat it. And if we don't make sure that our young ones know things that are black and white, come on guys, Israel is not a perfect nation. No nation on the face of this earth is perfect. But Israel is one of the nations, like many democracies, aspiring to become perfect. They're trying all the time to improve the rules that they have. I just came from Germany. Every time I'm super surprised when I go through the train and I hear the announcement in Hebrew, in Arabic, and then in English. And I said, like, what a beautiful thing. And you see so many people from all the nations sitting there, feeling free and safe. So Israel have a lot of good qualities, but they have also things that we need to work on. But the question is, it's quite clear the difference day and night. Look at what's happening in Sudan. Look at what's happening in Syria right now to the Druze, my people. Look at what's happening in Palestine. Nigeria. Exactly. I just read right now that Donald Trump made an announcement that, finally, Christianity in the world is taking responsibility for what is happening to Christians around the world. We have completely lost the sense of identity, and we have completely allowed our children to be left vulnerable for predators who will come and destroy it. Because a nation that cannot come and destroy you, the Christian, the Western Empire, the easiest way to do it is from inside. Now, I speak Arabic, and I remember one of the things, and I'm sorry for, but it's important. One of the things that my professor in university, a Muslim professor, told me, and it completely brought shiver through my spine, was 15 years ago. He said that in the Muslim Brotherhood around the world, they keep teaching that Islam have tried to destroy Christianity twice by the sword and failed. The third time we will destroy them from inside, without a single sword. And then they added the key perimeter. They said, the problem is that the West have forgot their God. And they have put men, and this is Islamic, and I've heard it myself with my own ears because I went undercover a few times to mosques and demonstrations in Europe to listen. They said, Christianity have taken God out of the picture and put man. It's all about me. I'm important. How I feel, who am I, my pronouns, and all kind of stuff. We Islam, we don't care about that. Man is not important. Allah is important. That's why we will win, because they don't have an identity. And I feel that we really need to take care of our children, make sure that they are aware of who they are and not ashamed of their identity. Stop teaching them that your country is a terrible country. If migrants want to move to your country and not stay in their country, there is something good happening in your country. People want to go to Europe because Europe is a good place. People want to go to America because America is a good place. So Americans and Europeans, so stop teaching that they're a bad place.
100%. I want to move this to Matzi for a minute, because everything that Mansour is saying is so accurate. But how do you reframe that story? How are we going to be able to bring the story of faith out, as opposed to talking about just the man or the conflict zone?
Well, I think the key word in everything you asked is the word faith. And you could walk away from everything Mansour just said and say, oh, this is an information war. It's not an information war. We live in a day and age where information is more available than it's ever been in human history. There is no problem in getting information, and with the rise of TikTok groups and Telegram groups and stuff like that, you can find any information and any footage of any war taking place within minutes of it happening. So information is not the challenge, it's perception and it's values. And I think that's where really you have to take this conversation. We're sitting here in a conference that's not called the Israel Media Conference. The tags, for those who have a tag, we never received one. The tags say the Christian Media Summit. And the reason is because we're united in this room because of values and not just information. Information's out there and people do different things with it. Much of it is malicious. We're here because we're united in values. And those values educate us and indicate and force us to view the world in a certain way. And what Mansour says is, and if you really sum up geopolitics and, let's call it politics of the 20th century into one sentence, it's really the understanding of who people groups are. And we need to double down and re-emphasize to people around the world who we truly are. I work a lot with a US-based audience. It's a country that is challenged oftentimes in shaping fully the way they look at the world. It allows extremists to shape their worldview instead of saying, we are the country that brought you the fruits of Christianity and Judeo-Christian values. The same applies to Europe, as Mansell said very correctly. Europe is exactly the same thing. We're reaping the fruit of what was Christianity. And we're right now having a conversation where one side falsely thinks that they can win the conversation with facts. No, let us show you how virtuous you are. People in Israel say this all the time, and internationals that come here say, well, why don't you show them and why don't you tell them? Nonsense. It's not about the facts. They already have access to the facts. It's about worldview. We said, and this is going back to October 7th, the language in Israel changed in the first weeks of the war. And we went back, a nation that was talking politics and camps in Israeli society, to talking a biblical language where we knew we were fighting once again a biblical war. That never changed. We just lost the language once again. We're fighting against an enemy that is diametrically opposed to everything we believe in, and they're open about it. They just say it in another language. And we think that we can appease them. And we think they can win over with facts. We have to be open and clear about what our values are. And that also that we're a collective and not individuals. And I think that's a key notion here. The notion is understanding that we're a collective that shares values and working as part of that collective, and not just trying to spread facts, but spread the values in the way we look at the world.
So in thinking about that and how we deliver the message, Yair, maybe you can take this one. What tone or medium do you think will work best? Is it humor? Is it simply faith, vulnerability? How do we share that message?
So I think, again, it's all about personal connections. And that's why I love the social media platforms that are available, because the audience can reach out to me directly, to all of us. And that's what's cool about it, because it's very human. God created us to have this personal relationship all the time. And I think that we need to interact with our audience. Enough of these like speaking and one person is speaking and everybody's listening and then clapping at the end. We need to have dialogues. We need to have debates. We need to talk with our audiences, and we need to challenge our way of presenting and showing the facts of what's happening here on the ground. And that's what we're trying to do. That's why we spend most of our days not wearing suits, wearing, tactical clothes, and going to the borders with Syria, with Lebanon, with the Gaza Strip, talking to the people, and then interacting with our audience and asking them what they want to know more, what they need to know. And of course, this is a spiritual war. We can't shy away from that. This is a spiritual war, and the only way to fight a spiritual war, do you know how? To pray. Exactly. Okay, so the enemy is using lies and deceits as he did in the past, as he did in the biblical times. Nothing changed. Now just there are more platforms for him to spread these lies. So you fight lies with the truth. Okay? And you fight a spiritual war by praying.
Can I ask one thing? I want to add one thought on how to do this as a person of faith. And this is the triad. There's information, there's prayer, and there's a word of God. And I feel like this is something people often fail to acknowledge. It has to come together. It's not enough to have information. It's not enough to pray, because you need to be based also in the information when you're praying. And the third thing, you need to be informed with the best book of history ever written in mankind, which is the Bible. You need to be informed by it, pray through it, and know what's happening. You have those three things, you're going to be working in the right direction when it comes to information, to explaining things, and to prayer life. All of them are going to work together.
So with that, we're going to get to our last question. I want each of you actually to answer it, and it really piggybacks on what you were saying. Let's say you had just 60 seconds, TikTok, Instagram, doesn't matter, to tell a young Christian why Israel matters. Yair, what would you say?
Well, I would say to young Christians in 60 seconds, I would say, open the Bible, read it, then pray. Ask God to tell you, what do I need to do in my relationship with Israel and with the Lord? And what's the purpose of this land? Because our Father in heaven does not change. Remember that. He does not change. His promises to Israel back in the Bible times are alive today. Israel had a purpose, and it's the same purpose today, to prove to the world again and again that God is faithful, okay, that He's performing biblical level miracles in modern days. And if any of these Christians around the world need help with their faith, just open the news, open YouTube, look at Israel. You see it everywhere. And you see that we are surviving, not just by winning against 7 different fronts, amazing miracles in modern days. God is acting today, and all of you are witnessing it firsthand by being here. So God is using Israel as a symbol of His faithfulness to all of us in modern days.
Yair actually said it was only 60 seconds to convey that message.
I was about to say that. I feel like that was a lot more than 60 seconds.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have gone.
That was the best 60 seconds I've heard in a long time.
We can always fast forward, you know, it's not...
Mati, take the same question.
Yeah, I'm doing a stop.
No, you have, where's the sense of equality here? Anyway, listen, here's the truth. The eyes of the world are on Israel and on what happens here, not just because of biblical scripture, because what happens in this world is the testing grounds of everything we believe in. And I'll explain that. If things work in Israel according to God's promise, God is proven faithful. And if they work against His promise, God is proven not to exist. And there are two camps around the world that fight a war based exactly on that understanding. And what happens in this country is so interesting and so triggering and so fascinating and so cause of anger to people because of exactly that, to the point that people that have never read the Bible and don't know what it says still care and demonstrate about what happens in this land. It's not about facts. It's not, although the facts do matter, it's not just about religion, although religion does matter. It's about what truly is planned to happen in this part of the world and whether or not God is faithful. And I'll jump to the end and say that He's proven it time and time again. I'm speaking to a Christian audience. God's proven His faithfulness from one cover of the Bible all the way to the other, and He's going to continue doing it again and again. That is why people care about what's happening here in this country.
Mansour, you started us.
1 minute and 18 seconds.
I'll try to break.
All right, you can do it.
I'll try to stick to 60 seconds. It's hard to beat. Well, I'll say it that way. I'm a Druze. I'm an outside observer. I'm not Jewish. I was not born to a Christian family. Jesus was a Jew. All of His disciples were Jewish. As a matter of fact, all of the Gospels were written, 98% of them were written in Israel by Jews to the Jews. So when young Moshe or young Menachem or Hannah were sitting folding the fishing net, and they heard that there's a man of Nazareth that just came to speak to the town and teach about this new religion, call it, they ran there to hear the gospel from a Jewish man about the Jewish people. They couldn't even imagine that one day there'll be people that will claim that the Jews are not the Jews as is written in the Bible, that the land of Israel doesn't belong to the Jews. They couldn't even think about it. They didn't have TikTok, they didn't have Booking.com, they didn't have the internet. They couldn't even imagine that the first man to land on the moon will be a Christian, which is a direct descendant from that religion, the Jewish religion. The first Christian church was a Jewish church. So that means the connection between Christianity to Judaism is very strong from the beginning. And if you as a young Christian go to church, talk to people physically, grab the hard copy of your Bible, read it. Be careful of TikTok. Be careful of Instagram. Don't get your information from there. It's good to get all the information, but focus on the hard thing, the solid facts of history. How many seconds? Oh, man.
All right, well, with that, those are wonderful answers, and I want to really thank you, Mansour and Mati and Yair. Let's round of applause for our panelists. So thank you all so much. Just as we conclude, you're going to have dessert and some wonderful music by the Salman Brothers, but I would just want to remind you that those who signed up for your tour to take a tour of Jerusalem tonight, immediately following dessert, please go downstairs and meet the buses. If not, you can go back to your hotel, get some rest. Bright and early in the morning, bus leaves at 8:30 for the tour of Judea and Samaria. Very exciting to go see the special places in the biblical heartland. And of course, tomorrow night is the gala dinner with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you all so much.